Will Smith was smacking all of the embarrassing entanglements that he has been through over the years, that has emasculated him, that has made him look less than a man, that has kept the streets clowning him on a regular basis. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Black Culture Talks. I'm Kim, aka Kim with the Gems, coming to talk to you about the topic that's been taking over the airwaves for the past 25 hours. And of course, we're talking about the violent assault that took place at the Oscars last night, where the very talented Will Smith walked up and cold smacked the very talented Chris Rock. Now, normally, this would not be a topic that would be covered here. This is not a celebrity entertainment site. It is a topic, though, that addresses important issues related to the Black culture, hence Black Culture Talks. And the takeaway that I got is not going to be based on really the sensational part of what happened last night, but more about the mental health aspect, because there's clearly some issues that were obvious from what happened last night, and we'll get more into that. So I do want to say, when I first thought about even doing this topic, I was like, I don't know, because I have my feelings about it. I know it's a hot topic. I know it's a lot of controversy, and we're literally, as a culture, seem to be split down the middle on whose side you're on, who's right, who's wrong. And I was also like, oh, this is rich people's problems. But the more I hear feedback, the more I hear people commenting about why Will was right, why, Chris was wrong or Chris was right. I was like, let me just come in, drop, a point of view that I really haven't heard a lot of. And it has to do with mental issues. Listen, we're talking about two grown ass men. Chris Rock is like 58 years old. Will Smith is like 53. And we're talking about potentially violence that was clearly being captured for the world to see. And there's just some issues that I think need to be addressed. Again, these are two rich men, wealthy men. I think the reports are Chris Rock is worth about 90 million to 120, somewhere around there. And Will Smith is worth about 350 million to 450 million. All of this is just supporting the thesis, or my point of view, as to why this was so out of character. At that level, it's unnecessary. There's so many other options, so many other things that could have been done. Now, I do want to acknowledge that a couple hours ago, Will Smith came out with a full apology towards Mr. Rock, Chris Rock. Now, rather it's genuine, or rather he's trying to, he got some legal advice that this is part of a plan, I don't know. But I probably would not have created this video had there not been an apology, because to me, then it would be just super sensational, in my opinion. But with that being said, let's just dive into my observation. And I also want to acknowledge, before we do that, Questlove, Samuel L. Jackson, Will Packer, and everyone else who deserved to have our attention today, but does not because of the foolishness that happened. Shout out to you guys, because, you earned the right to have some press, some media coverage about your wins, and not only the wins, but like Will Packer being the first African-American team to put together or produce the Oscars. That's major. But no one's talking about that. No one's talking about anything except the fight. So, yeah, trauma. There was so much trauma. There was trauma. I saw trauma in Will. I saw trauma in Chris. I felt trauma. I'm reading trauma in some of the comments and lives that have happened today. And it's clear that, Will is the darling. He's the most powerful. He's of the two, he's the most powerful. So he's going to get a lot of more outward love, right? People are going to come to his defense, I think, more vocally, because he has the power. But Plain and simple, that was wrong. The violence, assault is wrong. And it's wrong on a deeper level when, you know, it's black men, you know, there's so much stereotyping around our men that I was traumatized by just seeing that display. But it is true that, ooh, as soon as it happened, how many of y'all texts start going off, DMs, all of that? Like, it was definitely the most talked about news, I think, compared to what's going on overseas, you know, with the conflict overseas. I think it might have captured as many impressions, as much news as the war. But what I think it boils down to really is Will Smith has displaced anger that he needs to address. And we all, well, many of us suffer from displaced anger. And, you know, it's kind of like you're having issues at work that you bring home and take it out on your family, or vice versa. You're having issues at home, you go to work, you're not as productive, you know, quick to pop off. And so we all have seen some things over the past couple of years that can validate and verify the fact that Will may very well be suffering from some type of depression, anxiety, displaced anger, and I'll share some videos and some audios, you know, throughout this video, towards the end of the video, again, to support what I'm saying. But ever since the red table talk came around, it just seems that his cachet, his value, has gone down. Now, back to the subject. I was traumatized, and as a people, we need to do better. Now, I'm not saying we need to cower, but I'm saying that we need to do better. For anyone that thinks that what Will did was justified, I don't get it. Not here to judge. You could put comments below. This is not a debate. It's really my point of view and how we can try to heal and move forward, because I saw so many people attacking other people, you know, through comments. But assault is never okay, guys, not for those simple words. And we'll get more into that in a second. But what he did, in my opinion, was completely wrong. Period. Wrong. The areas of most concern for me that happened that night, or last night, was we all knew and we all know that there was a better way to handle that, right? There was no reason for him to jump up on stage like a madman and assault this man. Let's just say it was, you know, because he felt like he needed to protect his wife. There was a better way to do that. That smack, you know, if anything, Chris is a comedian. Chris is a comedian. He's about to go on tour with Kevin Hart, a country, probably international tour. He's going to be on the mic more than Will or Jada. So I truly think that just for reasons that it could get worse for Jada before it gets better, yeah, I just think there was, well, we all know there was a better way to handle that versus the smack. We also know that Big Willie is not really about that life. He is not known to, you know, check people, right? Except for the guy who tried to kiss him, which, you know, that was physical touching. I totally get it. Full approval. But other than that, he's not about that life. He's not a violent person. That's one of the reasons he's one of the biggest stars in the world, right? He's the nice guy. And for him to pick that time and place to show that he's like supposed to be, you know, that guy, we don't believe you, Big Willie. If that was, let's just say a Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, or a Dave Chappelle, or The Rock, or Jimmy Kimmel, or Jimmy Fallon. You see where I'm going with this? The list goes on and on. I would bet 100% of what I own that had those people said the same exact words, Big Willie would not have reacted that way. So he picked his prey. He picked a 58-year-old man that's not also known for being about that life. You know, Chris talks about going to school, you know, being the only black person, being bullied by the white people, so much so that he dropped out like 10th grade, right? So we know he's not gangster. But yeah, you picked the path of least resistance. And so we understand that, you know, you was going to walk away without a scratch. But had that been, you know, someone of a different size, mindset, background, it would have ended differently. But first and foremost, you would have never approached them like that. So I just, you know, really wanted to point that out. But he's also, my other point is, he selfishly took away from the people that I named earlier. There were so many, well, I didn't watch the whole show. Let's just be clear. I did, you know, I didn't see most of the movies. And so for me, who was I rooting for, right? I definitely was rooting for everybody black. But as far as really being involved and engaged with the program, I couldn't. So I really didn't tune in. We know that Sister Girl from West Side Story, the first Afro-Latina to win an Oscar, who's talking about her? We know that Samuel L. Jackson, I think he might have gotten it in an earlier, like I don't know if it was aired, but he was part of the program yesterday with the whole cast of Pulp Fiction. They brought back the cast of White Men Can Jump. Like there were some special moments. Also, someone else got an award. Oh, Questlove, that I think I might have mentioned earlier, he also received an Oscar. But no, we were robbed of getting all of that information last night and today because of the foolishness that Will decided to put on display. So he robbed the peoples. He robbed me, he robbed you, he robbed us. He robbed the culture. Oh, and then, you know, this kind of goes to, you know, him not being about that life. How you gonna be gangster 1 second and then 20 minutes later crying like Mr. Softy and crying to the point where it was like, we know you're an actor, Will. This is a little overkill. Like, you walked up there so brazen, you know, and did what you did. You got to stand in that. You know, not saying that you have to go up there and egg the situation on, but them crocodile tears, you know, they kind of got to a lot of people. It's like, yeah, you can't be, what did I hear? Like, you can't be Tupac 1 second, and then, you know, I forgot the analogy, but Mr. Softy the next. Like, pick a side. You kind of straddle in the fence. So, you know, that was another situation that kind of, you know, leads to the point where there's some mental issues or some struggles happening there, like the bipolarism in what happened. And it's not funny, it's not a laughing matter, but it's definitely visible through his actions. And then the ego. Let's talk about the ego. Now, I'm not sure if you guys know the story. If you haven't seen King Richard, please do. But even dig deeper, there's a whole lot of YouTube videos about this man and how he, you know, he protected his girls in a very, you know, he protected his family, but specifically related to Venus and Serena Williams, you know, being gifted in such an elitist sport where you have racism abound, like just everywhere you turn, and people not rooting for you. I mean, we see it even with like the Naomi Osakas and, you know, the Coco Gauffs, the new Sloane Stevens, is it Stevens or Stevenson? But even the generation of tennis players now are receiving similar backlash and racism. But Venus and Serena were like, well, they weren't the first professional Black women tennis players, but they, at that level, they were the first. And for Richard to, have to deal with that, with his young girls being treated as if they were less than and called out when they're, called out in such vile ways when they were 12, 13, 14 years old. I mean, Richard went hard for his family. He did, but he did it without violence. That was even part of the King Richard story. They grew up in a rough neighborhood, and was it Compton? And Richard knew how to ignore, deflect, and handle situations without pulling out a gun, fighting, or any of that. So for Will Smith to come up there and make the analogy of what he did to Chris Rock was similar to what King Richard, which I'm going to call him King Richard because he's great, amazing man. What he did for his family was all ego. And it was disgusting. How dare you? How dare you? Like, you talked about how throughout your career, you've had to deal with so much stuff and people coming at you and saying things about you and turning your neck and turning the other cheek. But you've been able to do that for the man. You've been able to turn your cheek and deal with whatever for the man. But when your brother makes a slip up, right? If you consider that a slip up, because I don't, and I'll get into that in a second. The first reaction is to smack, is to slap. You knew where you were going. You knew what happens at the Oscars. They hire comedians just for that. Matter of fact, at the beginning of the show, so I did see the beginning, Regina Hall, one of her jokes was, oh, I wish that Space Jam 3 was nominated for Best Costume Design. Did you see what they did putting on LeBron's hairline? That was amazing. So this is the type of show that the Oscars has been, as long as I've been watching or can remember. And so you knew where you were going. If you can't handle that, or if you're not in this mental space to handle that day, that week, whatever, bow out. Oh, his ego. The ego as it relates to Richard Williams and his acceptance speech, which went on way too long. They should have turned on the music and the mics. Just because you smack somebody, you should not take up everyone else's time, to say what you have to say. And then the apology that you did during your acceptance speech was to the man, to the Oscars, to your fellow nominee. You then felt the need to apologize to the system that beats you up so much, but did not make one mention of your evil act. And then the way he threw Denzel into the conversation, oh my gosh. Denzel was talking about the devil coming at you. He wasn't talking about Chris Rock being the devil. He was not. You were actually allowing whatever dark energy come in and set you up to do what you did. That was not, Chris Rock being the devil. And for you to throw a private conversation that Denzel had with you out to the public, I thought it was a bad move. I was going to say a BA move, but it was a bad move. So didn't have any respect for that. And yeah, I think, when it comes to talking about what, Chris actually said, he talked about G.I. Jane, right? And hey, Jada, love you. G.I. Jane 2 coming out next summer. Can't wait to see it, or something like that. I may not have quoted it exactly right. But my first response, or my first reaction, was not thinking anything about Jada having alopecia. And I also did not think that it was, negative, because G.I. Jane was a bad A chick, right? It was Demi Moore, low haircut, just like how Jada is, beautiful, just like Jada is. And I could see Jada playing that role. And truth be told, he may have sparked some conversations in Hollywood on behalf, just by saying that, because if people weren't looking at her before for that role, I promise you they're looking at her now. Because now, will she take it now just because of the way it came about? Probably not, but who knows, right? So again, I didn't see anything negative about that. Um, and then also, how was Chris to know that Jada has alopecia? I've seen so many people today, very prominent news people, as well as some bloggers and vloggers, had no idea, because Jada has changed her story as to why she cut her hair so many times. A spiritual journey, um, one-on-one, not one-on-one, trying to be her, have a connection with Willow, who often cuts her hair short like that. And then I think alopecia was probably the third reason. So as far as I know, there's at least three reasons as to why Jada has shaved her head, which again, I will underscore, gorgeous. She looks beautiful. And so there's no way anyone could come for her about her hair being short with a face like that, right? So I don't believe that it was any ill intent as it relates to Chris's comment about her being, G.I. Jane's, um, not part two, but what I said earlier. But anyway, and then he started with "I love you, Jada." Like, now again, he's a comedian, so take it for what it's worth. But it was not like a hateful. He didn't say it in a hateful way. So I just was like, I need to make this make sense. This has to make sense. And what makes sense is the fact that Will has literally gone through hell since the start of Red Table Talk. Even prior to that, we're gonna talk about, prior to that. If you saw the thumbnail for this video, these entanglements with Jada have been very public and been going on for a long time. So disclaimer, I don't know these people's personal business. I don't know them personally, I should say, but I am just going off of their words that they have said in other interviews and in the news or whatever. So we'll start first and foremost with, the late, great Tupac Shakur. Man, oh man, oh man. Like, how many times can this woman bring this man up in a way that it's obvious that, she says they never got together, intimately, but there is definitely a connection there that she doesn't have with her own husband. And she often cries over this man who has been gone for 25 years now, is it? She cries over him as if he's, the love of her life. And Will has even talked about feeling inadequate compared to, or his relationship feeling inadequate compared to the relationship that Jada has or has had and continues to have with Tupac. So I don't know about you, but if my spouse is constantly talking about someone else in this profound way that indicates there is an undying, unmatched love for this person, I'm gonna feel away. It's gonna mess with him. But let's move on. Let's move on a little. After Tupac, I don't know if you guys remember, there was a big scandal when Jada played, she had a role on this show called Hawthorne, and her co-star was the singer Mark Anthony. Well, the show was highly rated. It was doing phenomenal. Then this whole expose came out about her being caught in a compromising position with Mr. Mark Anthony. Mark Anthony, I believe, was with J-Lo at the time. Well, he was with someone at the time. That relationship ended. The show ended abruptly. And Jada had to go on the defense, as well as Mark, and say that this was not true. But from some really high-level sources, there was supposedly something, allegedly something, some truth to it, right? So that was plastered on the gossips pages. Luckily, the internet was not as popping. We didn't have the IGs popping like it is now. Twitter was, there was some Twitter activity, but if it would have happened today, it would have been more embarrassing for Will. So again, another entanglement that he had to live down. And then finally, that the one we can talk about is the latest one, August Alsina. I have so many thoughts about that, but watch the Red Table Talk. Watch the Red Table Talk if you haven't already, when her and Will talk about that situation. I'll try to link it, if I remember, in the description. If I forget, go on to, Google and find it. But yes, if August Alsina would have never told his truth about the situation, we would have never known. And I believe the reason he told his truth, because they used him and he was broken and hurt. And while everybody's sitting over here talking about relationship goals related to Will and Jada, this man is over here bruised and broken because he went to them expecting to get help. They said in Red Table Talk that he was severely ill and they were nursing him back to health. But somewhere along that, nursing him back to health, Jada preys on this young boy who had issues. And then she claims her and Will were separated, but then they started trying to work it out. Who knows if that's true? And that's when, it was time for August to go. Now, August brings this up, and once again, the Jada Pinkett Smith, Will Smith household is blown up from a PR perspective. August was a friend of their son, supposedly. Again, I'm saying everything allegedly because, who knows if what they're saying is truth or not, because they wouldn't have told us anything had August not told us anything. As a man, for this to blow up in your face, and if you listen to the Red Table Talk, and if you watch Will really closely, he's broken. He's broken. Jada has done some other things that they don't discuss, but supposedly Will was done with her a couple of times and has been through hell and back with this woman. He's a broken man, but has made a lifelong commitment to the mother of his children, two of his 3 children. And so I get that, and I can respect that. But now their business is being plastered all over the place. And Jada coming out saying we don't even call each other married anymore. We're, I forgot what term she used because it's a whole bunch of BS. And, if they have open relationships, that's fine. But then they try to deny they don't have that. And there's never been any infidelity and this and that. The one thing I will say about Mr. Will Smith is whatever he does, he makes sure there's an understanding, I guess, because these women don't come out blowing him up. You would never know that he was cheating. So, and I can't even call it cheating, or that he was having extracurricular activities on the side. But with Jada, it seems like we know way more than we should know about her extracurricular activities. And for any man who loves someone, and I do believe Will loves Jada, that has got to be devastating in so many ways. And devastating to the point that it leads him to make reckless acts like he did at the Oscars, in the name of love. Not that I want him to, get arrested or anything like that, even though it was assault, clear assault. And if that would have happened in front of an officer, if an officer was right there would have been no question, do you want me to press charges? He would have been arrested, period, point blank. Regular people in the street would have been arrested if you smack somebody in front of an officer. That was assault. And not only did he assault Chris, he has also humiliated him. He has devalued his brand in some ways. And so, although I don't want to see Will get arrested, I do want to see him get help. Now, I don't need to see it personally, but he needs to dig deep. He needs to go through some intense therapy, because whatever therapy he was going through before that is clearly not working to the level that it should. But he needs to seek real therapy. And he also needs to pay up. Yeah, he's going to have to pay and pay handsomely. Pay so that he understands this cannot happen again. So what that number looks like, I have no idea, but it's going to be a lot of millions. It should be a lot of millions. And I would have no problems with Chris Rock asking for 100 million. and seeing where it lands. Not saying you'll get it, but yeah, that was humiliating beyond belief. And I also want to do a disclaimer, because people are saying, oh, they still think it was staged and, this and that. I thought it was staged when I first saw it. Don't know. And if it comes out later that it is staged, then so be it. But right now, I don't think it was staged, just by all of the after effects with him yelling and cursing and this and that, and with his, knowing his mother and her knitting, because that's what he said in his speech. His mother didn't come because she wanted to stay in Philly and watch with her knitting friends. She has a group of friends who knit. So the fact that you would do that, knowing your mother's at home with her knitting friends, if that's really true, yeah, I don't believe it was staged. But I do want to see him get help. And that's what, we talk about on this channel as well, because, mental health is something that we don't talk about often, and it can lead to certain things like this. I mean, we all have hot and cold days, or we all have times where we act out of character for whatever reason. But when you have the impulse or lack of control to the point where you don't even care that globally around the world everyone is going to see you do this, then that's problematic. And if you think about how Jada talks about Will, it's like she has not loved him, or she's been miserable for the majority of the time they were together. And so if he doesn't fix that, or at least fix the communication that's coming out of their camp that is so one-sided, because he doesn't say stuff like that. Like, he is very cautious on how he communicates about their relationship. Again, I don't want this to be a sensational video. I just want this to be reasons why I believe Will Smith was not smacking Chris Rock. Will Smith was smacking all of the embarrassing entanglements that he has been through over the years, that has emasculated him, that has made him look less than a man, that has kept the streets clowning him on a regular basis, to the point where even like Future, I don't know if you guys saw this, like Future was like, yeah, I'd rather hang out with Jada. Like, she the boss, basically, like of the two, either out of Will and Jada. He doesn't know them, but he's like, of the two, yeah, Will, you a cornball. I'd rather hang out with Jada. And even thinking about when he first started rapping, he's always been that corny rapper, which, listen, is fine because it's worked for him. But now, whatever issues you're going through is turning you into someone that you're not, and not in a good way, because we don't believe you. You're not a gangster. That slap was all due to displaced anger and mental impulses. Like, you definitely should have been able to control yourself in that instance. And I want better for us as a community, a culture. I don't want us to keep fighting each other. We have too much to fight on the outside. There's no need for us to be fighting publicly at such mass levels. Like, these are leaders, and when I say leaders in our community, I mean financially. Like, these are people who have made it, that can have impact. They're influencers. They are fathers, and that's another thing. Like, how do you go up there? That man has children, young girls that got to go to school and hear this stuff. And I think one is going to college or something like that. But that was so unnecessary, and I hate the way it's dividing us. And I want us to be good as a community. Hence why this channel was born. Yes, there will be some, ups and downs and some disagreements and things that, we don't always see eye to eye on. But this was a bad look. It was a bad look, plain and simple. I am glad that he has issued an apology. I still want Chris Rock to sue. Chris Rock also talks about his mental issues. What is it? Basically, he has social anxiety issues, like social issues. He's socially awkward. It's similar to Asperger's disease, but it's not Asperger's. I'll add that at the end of the video or something. But he does not understand social cues. So you could say to him, like, hey, Chris, I'm not feeling, too well. I don't know if I'll, be able to come over to your birthday party today. Um, but I hope everything is okay. Maybe, I'll go to the hospital and get myself checked out. His response would be like, oh, okay, thanks, bye. Like it's no emotion, no social connection to whatever it is people are saying. And so he's disconnected, but he's working on it. Like he's talked about getting therapy 7 times a day to deal with that. It's not worked in his relationships. It's not worked with like a lot of friendships. He just has a clinical diagnosis of, I wish I could understand, non-verbal social disorder, something like that. I know I'm saying it wrong, but I'll add it at the end of the video. But yeah, we all have issues. We just need to work on them and not, try to avoid violence, because things like this can escalate. Will is from Philly. Chris is from Brownsville, Brooklyn. Yeah, the barbershops are going to be popping this weekend coming up. So we just want to, try to keep the energy positive and work it out. Like brothers got to work it out. So I just wanted to come in and really just acknowledge the fact that I am proud of Chris for even being silent after this is all said and done, and not commenting too much about it. And I know he's probably got plans and needs to talk to his legal team and all of that, but it could have been far worse. And so with that being said, I said I wasn't going to keep you too long. It's about 40 something minutes now. So I, am going to sign off, and definitely like this video. Comment below. Even if you disagree, just keep it nice. This is not a video. This is not a channel for negativity. So if you don't agree, that's fine too. But just, say why. Say why you don't. Yeah, and subscribe to the channel. We do have, I think up next is we're going to be talking about entrepreneurship in the Black community. So be ready for that conversation. We have some other good topics coming out. Not sure if they're going to come out this week or this weekend, but yeah, stay tuned. And, let's all move in love. With that said, I'll say good night. Take care.